When will the first JSFs be ready to engage in combat?
So amongst our three services, Andrew, the Marine Corps has announced that they're going to have an initial operational capability by 2015.
What does that mean?
That means
operational capability.
Sure, the capability of the airplanes that they will have taken delivery of in 2015 will provide them the necessary warfighting or combat capability if necessary. So from that, they're looking at the potential for contingency deployments following 2015.
So you're confident, or they're confident, by that time all the wrinkles will be ironed out in the JSF?
For the capability that the Marine Corps is planning on, yes, sir.
And what kind of capability is that?
Well, in our avionics or mission system area, we have divided up the warfighting capability into three increments. And the capability that the Marine Corps is going to IOC with is the second of the three increments. So there will be a third increment that will come subsequent to that, but the capability that the airplane will already have in 2015 is sufficient to meet the Marine Corps' needs for warfighting capability.
I suppose the question is, would it be able to be involved in a dogfight or in a hot war?
I believe by the Marine Corps' decision, the answer is yes.
Whose idea was concurrency?
Well, Andrew, you have to go back to the boldness of the initiative that the JSF program represents. Late 1990s, the Department of Defense recognized that the air forces of the Marine Corps, the Navy, the U.S. Air Force, together with many allied countries, needed to be recapitalized. And the leadership of the department at that time undertook a bold initiative to have one program recapitalize the services as opposed to having multiple programs, to do the same thing. In recognizing that, there was an understanding that concurrency may have to be a part of the program. And the reason for that is because there was a trade-off there between accepting some concurrency as opposed to extending the service life of the legacy fleets. So in that context, the courage of the U.S. government's leadership at the time, of the Department of Defense's leadership at that time, to take on this bold initiative, recognizing that there may be some concurrency that has to be dealt with, has proven to this day to have been an appropriate trade-off.
The Pentagon's Vice Admiral David Venelitz said that it was a miscalculation. Others have used tougher words than that.
And if you go back and you research those comments, Andrew, they were made at a time when some very initial estimates for concurrency were coming out. Those estimates were very high. Subsequent to those initial estimates, there's been further work done to really estimate discretely the amount of concurrency that is going to be realized. And I'm happy to tell you that in a fairly short amount of time, those estimates have come down significantly.
But it's still a problem.
It's actually becoming much, much less of a problem because of the fact that as we converge on estimates that are appropriate for what in fact the early airplanes will have to realize in retrofits, it's falling into line with what the expectations were at the beginning of the program and what fundamentally the program was founded on from a value proposition.
Lieutenant General Bogdan said that concurrency has created complexity downstream that makes the program very difficult to manage and increase our costs.
But I believe it would also be fair to say that it doesn't make it an impossible task. And in fact, we're showing every day that concurrency is very manageable. It takes a lot of planning.
He told us that last week.
Yeah.
So it's very relevant to what he says is going on now.
Yes, and my comment, Andrew, is that concurrency is manageable.
He also said that, make no mistake about it, this program still has risks, technical risks, it has cost issues, It has problems we have in the future to fix. So he's saying it's by no means all over yet.
So the work that was done back in 2010 laid out a development plan that will largely complete here in 2016. And that plan accounts for all the things that you just said, Andrew. It accounts for the work that we have yet to do, but it provides sufficient resources in this time frame to complete that work.
How do you explain the fact that an aircraft called the Lightning has lightning protection that has a problem because it wasn't designed well and that it has to be designed? In fact, General Brogdon said it was not designed well and we have to redesign it.
So Andrew, lightning protection is a good example of the type of normal discovery that you're going to find as you execute a development and test program. There are some changes we had to make in the fuel system in order to provide the level of lightning protection that's required. Those changes are well underway. We already have it planned as to when they're going to cut into production, how we're going to retrofit those changes, and provide the capability that the F-35 needs for lightning protection.
Do you not see there's a perception problem there when you name a plane the Lightning and it can't fly near lightning?
I see it as when was that capability required per the plan that we had. And per the plan that we have coming out of 2010, that we're now in the third year of executing, the plan called for that capability to be available in the 2014 timeframe. We have actually taken steps, Andrew, to bring that left and provide that capability sooner, given the restrictions that it imposes. But per the plan was to have that capability in 2014.
And how many plans have there been now? Which plan are we on now?
The only plan that matters, Andrew, is the plan that we're working to today, which we're in our third year now of executing. And we're executing very well in this plan.
I'm talking about the critics who say, and there are many critics, as you know, of the program that say you keep on rebasing, you keep on replanning so that you can hit your targets.
Andrew, we're in our third year of executing to the plan that was laid out in 2010. And we are executing to that plan and executing well to that plan.
This is also something that General Brogdon said to us. He said, looking at what we have, the cost to sustain the aircraft is too high, simply too high. He's saying it's too high right now, and the price needs to come down.
Yes, and in fact, Andrew, there's a tremendous amount of work going on to determine, first of all, what really is the sustainment cost. And frankly, one of the things that's important in looking at the sustainment cost of an F-35 is comparing that properly to the legacy fleets that the Air Forces have today. So yeah, we understand that it is important, to have a focus on this, to take cost out wherever possible. But what's also very important in this discussion is to understand how that compares to the legacy fleet.
But he's saying that unless you actually get the cost down, you're not going to sell enough aircraft.
And it will always be our goal, Andrew, it's our goal to take the cost out of the production of the airplane. It's our goal to take the cost out of the sustainment of the airplane. That will be a continuous project on our part throughout this entire program, as it's been for any of the other fighter programs that Lockheed Martin has been involved with. So we'll always have a focus on that.
He also says you may need to reduce the capability of the plane because there's no more money and no more time. In other words, you need to produce a plane that might be an inferior version, but it needs to come out on price and on time.
Yeah, and in fact, Andrew, I will come back to what was laid into the 2010 plan was sufficient resources for us to be able to deliver the full capability of the airplane. So General Brogdon and I often talk about no more money, no more time, and we both agree 100% on the importance of that, and we both realize and look at the fact that there are sufficient resources there to deliver the full capability of this airplane.
Just let me ask you about the cost of the aircraft to Australia. What is your estimation of how much the flyaway cost will be of the aircraft?
Well, Andrew, first of all, let me say this. From the very first production aircraft we built to today, we've taken out 50% of the cost of the airplane. The general consensus is that with the trajectory that we're on our way to a $65 million airplane in today's dollars. And we expect to achieve that point as we complete the limited rate production contracts that we're in right now.
You say $65 million per aircraft?
Per aircraft.
When will that be?
What we call the end of the limited rate production contracts that we currently have, say middle to end of this decade.
When General Bogdan says the price is around about 118 million.
Yes, he's quoting today. I'm quoting where we expect to be and where, frankly, the U.S. government expects us to be as we get towards the end of this decade and we go from a limited rate production environment into a multi-year production, full rate production environment.
That presupposes that there'll be an increase in demand for the aircraft.
That supposes the plan that have been established by the services here in the U.S. and by the partner countries for the number of airplanes they're going to order.
What happens if they back away from their orders as the Canadians and other countries are taking a second look at?
So all our partners, Andrew, to this day...
What happens in that case?
I will answer that. All our partners to this day have said that they remain committed to the F-35 program. As order quantities change, then by definition, the prices have to change with that. But the plan or the ordering commitment that we're assuming today is the latest ordering commitments that our government, the United States government, has said, and also that have been received from our international partners.
So as international partners reduce their demand, if they do, then the price goes up.
It could affect the pricing, yes. But let us also not assume that there's no possibility for quantities to increase, Andrew.
It's said by General Bogdan that he describes it as the orders going down, the price going up, it being a death spiral.
Yeah, I think we would agree with that. If those circumstances were to happen, if all of a sudden the demand for the airplane were to drop off and the price were to go up, then it would be very difficult to be affordable.
So the price you're quoting, in fact, is based on a best-case scenario, everybody staying with their orders.
It's based on a realistic scenario. It's based on the scenario as has been defined today, which already reflects some of the reductions in quantities from the past, and is the plan that has been established by our government and by the partner countries. Given the strategic importance of the decision to order the F-35 airplanes, for any country is a decision that rightfully is reviewed and re-reviewed by these countries. I think what we're seeing in Australia, what we're seeing in Canada, what we're seeing in Italy, Turkey, is that process. And we remain confident that the F-35 airplane in these reviews will still be viewed favorably, will still be viewed as the airplane that these countries need for their future.
When you say you expect them to review and to make a positive decision, how did you manage to sell the aircraft to Australia without a competitive tendering process?
The pricing, Andrew, that we're talking about reflects coming down on our learning curves, both here at Lockheed and also across our supply base, and represents a very competitive offering when you factor all those things into the pricing.
You must have been very surprised when Australia said that they would buy the plane without doing any detailed comparison with any other aircraft in the world?
The countries that we were talking to at that time, when Australia made that decision, all recognized the fifth generation capabilities that this airplane provides. The low observable signature, the enhanced avionics, mission systems capability, intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance capability of this airplane. And therefore, this being the only fifth generation capability airplane that is available to be procured from the United States, to us, it appeared to be a very rational decision.
It was a paper plane at the time in 2002, and yet Australia sent your competitors home from Canberra, just said, we've already decided. That must have surprised you, even with all of your experience in plane making and plane selling, that was an extraordinary win.
Andrew, our view was that the Australian government made a very wise decision.
Of course, the Australian government now is now having second thoughts and is looking at buying 24 of your competitors' aircraft. Do you think that's a wise decision?
As I said before, Andrew, Australia, any other sovereign nation, has the right and should exercise the right to always review these decisions over time, especially as we begin to get closer and closer to when the jets are being ordered. I believe that is what the Australian government is doing. I believe that the F-35 will prove favorable in that review process, and we stand ready to support the Australian government with whatever decision they make.